We went for the switch on in December, and we've been told that quite often children don't respond at the first switch on and the testing. So we were realistic that we probably wouldn't have anything and that would be okay. When she was actually initially switched on, my husband spoke to her and just asked, I think he asked, "How are you, Alyssa?" And you could see that she was just sort of looking around the room. She could obviously hear something. She didn't know what it was or where it was coming from, but you could just see that her eyes kind of flickered a little bit and she was trying to search for something. So we saw a little reaction, first of all.
When we came over for his switch on, I think we were actually quite excited because we'd now had that weight. He was back to being the completely normal toddler that he was. We were quite eager now to make sure obviously everything was happy and everything was working. He's actually only been switched on for 8 weeks now, since the 1st of February. And in his first appointment, he did hear things. Once a sound was played, he turned straight round to the audiologist that was doing it and he's just like, "What are you doing?" He kept looking at us like, "I know you're doing something, what are you doing to me?" But he soon cottoned onto it, and then he was hearing it and then pointing at the boxes that have the animals in that play the drum and the car and everything. It probably wasn't as we'd quite expected, because you see all these videos online, and I think it's never going to be like some of those amazing videos, because I don't think those videos are the initial switch on for some of them. He did respond, but he wasn't distressed, he wasn't crying, he wasn't happy. He was just noticing that he had sound and he was just turning to the audiologist. We've got a video of him obviously during his switch on, when all the instruments come out and he's playing the drum and banging around, and he actually really loves watching that still now. He asks, when he gets up in the morning, he asks to watch Bang Bang, which is his video, and he loves watching that, just sat on the bed with us. Which is really nice, but I think it's just him playing the drum, which is the bit he likes about it.
On the day of the initial switch on, we'd been told not to expect too much because the sounds were going to be so quiet so as not to shock him, and we were also told sometimes no reaction is better, because if there's a big reaction and they're startled, that could be unsettling for them. So we were already thinking, no reaction is good, as long as they know it's working, that's fine. And so Ted was sitting in the high chair, and the audiologist was talking through what he'll be hearing some beeps now, and the only time we saw him respond was when the speech therapist went behind him and started banging a drum, and Ted was playing with some things, and we've got it on video, and he just stops playing and goes. And it's only looking back now at the video, there's this little eye movement, and he just went quite still, and that's when we thought, yeah, he's heard that. And then she came round, and then he reaches out and he has a bang on the drum, and that was really nice. That was the first thing he heard. And so although we weren't expecting anything, it is lovely that we have got the kind of switch on moment that you're told not to expect.
So at the beginning, there were times when it was difficult for Henry to hear, and he seemed to only respond to myself or my husband's voice. But as time's gone on, we are not noticing many situations where it's difficult. Over Christmas, my mum had her 60th birthday, and it was a big group, and he was able to communicate and hear and respond, and he sang happy birthday, which made her day. So in a very quick period, he's able to hear very well in every situation.
And then it took a long time, I'd say probably, I think maybe a couple of weeks, for her to kind of start making some sounds, and just slowly then over time she started to say little words. I think uh-oh was the first one that she started saying, and ta, and then she started saying and da, and then eventually Mummy and Daddy came. The first 6 months it was very up and down, it was very slow, and then she'd have little bursts where she'd then start saying a few more words and then it would die down again. Whenever it got a bit of a lull time, we'd always think, is it working? Is something not working properly? Is it broken? Is she now not being able to learn anything? And then again she'd pick up a few months later. Any little sounds she was making we were over the moon about. But there were lots of times when we were thinking, oh, this doesn't work properly, or she's not learning as she should be. There was a time she was about 2 years old, so 8 months after the implant, that we were out in the park and she was pointing up at the trees and looking, and she could hear some birds singing. It was quite a quiet sound, but she could hear it and she was pointing to it. And also aeroplanes, she could hear the aeroplanes because we live near Heathrow, so she would hear them and point up to them. And that was really exciting.
Since his switch on, he is doing amazingly well. For all of the appointments we've ever gone back to, they've always been shorter than what they should be, because he walks straight into the room, sits down and wants to get the job done. He's like, right, I'm here to do the job, let's do it. And he's still doing the same when they do the NRI testing, that he just hears a sound and turns around to them and then points at the boxes. He's hearing so much more than I ever thought he would at this early stage. I took him to the beach a couple of weekends ago, and he was stood by the edge of the sea and he was going whoosh because he could hear the waves coming in. He can even hear, if one of the coils drops off, he'll hear the other ones that is beeping, and he'll go beep, beep, because he could hear the beeping from it. So all of those little things, and he seems to be understanding more. So you can come down to him and explain to him, shall we go and do this first and then we'll do that? And then we'll do that. Starting to take that on board. From his first switch on 8 weeks ago, he's doing incredible already.
After the switch on, and then we went back to the implant centre a week after, and then a couple of weeks after that, and then a month, and he had lots of tunings, and I don't quite know when things went from him just hearing. First of all, we knew he was just hearing noise, and then when it started changing from noise to hearing specific sounds differently. We did a lot of work at home with every time we thought he reacted to a sound, taking him to the doorbell, taking him to the telephone, so he could relate what the sound he was hearing was. He's now been switched on a year, and I think his mapping is very nearly finished. So it has been taken about a year to get to his final map, and each time after each appointment, when they've changed the levels and then checked what he can hear, and then we've had to turn it up at home. So after a week or so of him being at one level, we've then turned the volume up for him to get him used to it, a new volume. And one time when I turned the volume up more recently, his head actually said no, and he could tell it was different and he didn't like it. But then we tried it a couple of days later and he was fine with it. So I think now he's able to give us that feedback of what things sound like to him.